Welcome back to the Political Education for Freedom podcast. I'm your host, Nitra, and today we're calling out the masters of selective memory. You've probably seen or heard Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis. They're running to be the Republican nominee to run against the Democratic nominee for president. And we already know who Democratic nominee is. That's Joe Biden. Nothing you can do about it, right? An incumbent president always runs again unless they step down. That's sort of how that whole presidential thing works. And I'm actually going to be doing an episode on that about government. Let's get into it. We're going to talk about some real American history. So Nikki Haley and them on their high horse saying that the U.S. is this utopia that's never been a racist country. That's coming from the party that has spout nothing but racist remarks and racist policy. She comes from, this is Haley we're talking about, immigrant parents. They immigrated here from, I believe, Ujjayi, India. I think that's right. Now she's a candidate for president, running for president. Okay, cool. That sounds all good. Let's not twist her personal success into a whitewashed narrative of America's racial past. It's like she lives in a fantasy land where systemic racism is a Michael Myers movie. Lady, it exists. It is real. Okay? Like there's no, she actually said it herself. Let's listen to what she said.
No, we're not a racist country, Brian. We've never been a racist country. Our goal is to make sure that today is better than yesterday. Are we perfect? No. But our goal is to always make sure we try and be more perfect every day that we can. I know I faced racism when I was growing up, but I can tell you today is a lot better than it was then.
You agree that the U.S. has never been a racist country?
Well, the U.S. Is not a racist country, and we've overcome things in our history. We've had challenges with how race was viewed. It doesn't matter your background. This is the best place to grow up and to pursue your dreams of any place in the entire world.
So that was Nikki Haley Nimrata is her real name. Nimrata. Haley is her married name, actually. So that was her, the first clip. Second clip was Ron DeSantis. And she said that a few days ago. And then they had a town hall. And at the town hall said this.
About a comment you made earlier this week. You said that America has, quote, never been a racist country, unquote. Protections for the institution of slavery were written into the U.S. Constitution. The White House was built with slave labor. Your home state of South Carolina seceded from the Union, fought a war to defend the enslavement of black people. I understand you don't think America is a racist country now, but we're here at a college. Do you really think as a historical matter, America has never been a racist country?
Think about what you're saying. First of all, I will tell you, when you look at, the Declaration of Independence, it was that, men are created equal with unalienable rights, right? That was what we all knew. But what I look at it as is I was a brown girl that grew up in a small rural town. We had plenty of racism that we had to deal with. But my parents never said we lived in a racist country. And I'm so thankful they did. Because for every brown and black child out there, if you tell them they lived or were born in a racist country, you're immediately telling them they don't have a chance. And my parents would always say, you may have challenges. And yes, there will be people who are racist, but that doesn't define what you can do in this country. And so I think it's important that we tell all kids that, look, America is not perfect. We have our stains. We know that. But our goal should always be to make today better than yesterday. It's hugely important. And that's the problem I have is we have too many people with this national self-loathing. It is killing our country. We have got to go back to loving America. We are blessed because that little brown girl in that small rural town in South Carolina, she grew up to become the first female minority governor in history. She then went on to be UN ambassador, and now she's running for president of the United States. I want every brown and black child to see that and say, no, I don't live in a country that was formed on racism. I live in a country where they wanted all people to be equal and to make sure that they had life liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Okay, but just to push back a bit, because I was a history major in New Hampshire. You're talking about the ideals of America, but America was founded institutionally on many racist precepts, including slavery.
But when you look at said all men are created equal, I think the intent was to do the right thing. Now, did they have to go fix it along the way? Yes, but I don't think the intent was ever that we were going to be a racist country. The intent was everybody was going to be created equally. And as we went through time, they fixed the things that were not all men are created equal. They made sure women became equal too. All of these things happened over time. But I refuse to believe that the premise of when they formed our country was that it was a racist country to start with. I refuse to believe that. I have to know in my heart and in everybody's heart that we live in the best country in the world, and we are a work in progress, and we've got a long way to go to fix all of our little kinks. But I truly believe our founding fathers had the best of intentions when they started, and we fixed it along the way, and we should always look at it that way.
So none of it was on the surface factual. So the irony here is that her own story is racist, not just her specifically, because in the first clip she said that she dealt with racism. But let's not just gloss over the fact that she's witnessed racism. It's not just she witnessed racism. Her parents were victims of racism and racist policies even when immigrating here. So the reason that she was able to immigrate to this country was because of, or her parents was because of the civil rights movements. Those legislation came out of those movements, right? So her parents had to come here. Her parents isn't of the same hue as she, right? So they're more of the darker Indian hue, and she's more of a whiter hue. But her parents migrated over here, right? Her father could not get a job because of racism, so he went to teach at a HBCU. Her mother was a seamstress or a designer or something of that sort. I can't think exactly what it was. Her mom made dresses or hats or some shit. White people would not purchase from her mom. So, one, they moved to a black community, predominantly black community. Predominantly black people is who her mom sold her products to, meaning her clothing, whatever she designed or whatever. I don't know if she was a storekeeper or whatever. She's saying that America is not a racist country, yet her entire being is based on racism, even after she immigrated, or her parents immigrated from another country to this one. So she's not saying what she knows her supporters would cringe at hearing. That's the sort of the trend now. So racist people don't want to be called racist, but they want to be racist. They just don't want to be called racist. You know that whole call a thing a thing? They don't want to be called a thing, but they still want to be that thing. So there's actually legislation in, I want to say, Florida, that was introduced in Florida, where a member of the Florida State House is proposing legislation to stop people from calling other people racist. Yeah, they're trying to enact a law, and they tout freedom of speech, right? But apparently not when you make the racists feel bad. They want to accept that this country has slavery and it was built on slavery, and its whole premise and principles were built on slavery and race. Yet they don't want to say it. So they'll embrace that, yes, we did have race-based slaves, right? Because it was a institution of race-based slavery. White people were not slaves. Most times they would consider them indentured servants. And after they got rid of the term indentured servants, they became workers. So if white people were working on a plantation, they were getting paid. They got wages, or they were settling a debt, whatever it is. They were not slaves. They could not be slaves, right? It was written in the laws. The funny part about the GOP, and GOP stands for Grand Old Party, just to be honest, there is people of color who is trying so hard to be a part of this party that don't want them to be a part of it. The GOP does not want black people. They don't want dark people. They don't want immigrants unless you come from a quote unquote white country. So although these people are fighting so hard to keep this pretend world that doesn't exist, they somehow think they're included. They're not. Okay? Here's why. No, I played that clip. Since then, DeSantis has dropped out of the race. I call him White Boots. So he's dropped out the race. Another candidate dropped out the race. That's Vivek. Vivek Swami. Vivek. Okay? Let's just call him Vivek. Vivek dropped out. I want to say he dropped out during the Iowa caucus or right after the Iowa caucus or something like that. Not sure exactly, but Vivek is Indian American, similar to Nikki Haley. Nikki Haley she's an American. She was born here, but she's of Indian descent. Her parents are. I believe Vivek was born here too. I don't really know Vivek, honestly. This guy just kind of came out of nowhere. We know Nikki Haley from South Carolina. Dylan Roof murdered the 6 people during Bible study. Reverend Pinckney was one of them. There are some more names. I can't remember to say them just now, but I'll put them in the show notes. Nikki Haley was the governor at the time. She signed the legislation to remove the Confederate flag from the State House, but she didn't do it just because she wanted to. She actually was in favor of keeping the Confederate flag there. She said it means heritage. So we know who Nikki Haley is, right? There was a lot of protests over the Confederate flag in South Carolina. So this is where we know her from. So she's been placating to her base for some time. She also, I believe she appointed Tim Scott to the Senate seat. She appointed him as senator for South Carolina. That was a few years back. I can't remember exactly. Back to the current race, because we're going to go backwards and just really debunk that whole America has never been a racist country thing. We're going to squash that lie. So Vivek dropped out of the race after the Iowa caucus. A few of the members of the Iowa caucus had something to say about the candidates. And Vivek came up, and one of the people said something to the effect of, I won't vote for him because he looks like a terrorist. That's not funny, but that is funny, because Vivek has been the biggest anti-black person No, I won't say the biggest anti